Hi folks, I'm Donna Williams and I'm going to talk a bit about internal clashes. I guess many people, when you talk about personality clash, they think about a clash between themselves and another person. And actually many of us will have internal personality clashes where there's one very dominating trait which really clashes with another one that we've inherited. For example, if you have a parent who's one type of person and a parent who's another type of person, and they have a huge personality clash, and then you inherit parts of what they got, except in you, it doesn't get along any better than it got along between those two. So I guess I first became aware of really significant internal personality clashes, partly in my work as an autism consultant, but also, whenever you're a therapist, you really reflect back on not just your study and learning and research, but your own experienced reality. And parts of me are quite solitary, and parts of me are very self-sacrificing. And so the self-sacrificing parts would be giving my whole life away and pretty much inviting a lot of emotional burden from other people. And the solitary part would be screaming because it just couldn't handle that level of social contact, and that level of intimacy, that level of being known. Privacy really mattered. And so these two, were really tearing apart quite a lot. I have certainly also a very vigilant side, which is very much about autonomy, and the part that would give life away, my life away to everybody else would be, having that extreme conflict with the part that really didn't want entanglement. It really needed autonomy. I guess also having a very conservative side, and I have, I'm quite, there's a part of me that's quite serious and takes responsibility very seriously, and is also quite conscientious, and so, keeping a degree of control and getting things done sort of matters. And then there's another part of me that is very idiosyncratic and quite naturally nonconformist. And so the serious part that would get me into situations of high levels of responsibility and that sort of thing of, you can't quit and you must retain control, etc. And the other part wants to completely let go control and just do the opposite to anything that feels conformist. Get crazy, get surreal, get arty. And I'm also quite exuberant, very arty. There's a part of me which is like that. And there's other parts of me that are so introverted and so pragmatic. Things must be practical. They must be useful. Art has no use. Why do you want to put all this passion into something as futile as art? It doesn't matter about aesthetics. Are they practical? And so I guess we all know those kind of a degree of those internal clashes, and they can be really extreme, especially when one part of ourselves rages ahead and commits our whole life to a certain area that satisfies its stuff, and the other stuff gets shoved into a corner, and it's like it creates a kind of internal sadness where that part or those parts of ourselves are waiting for a chance to be validated, to get equal time, to have their chance at self-esteem, have their chance at their own version of belonging. And I guess being someone with dissociative identity issues, it's even more full on, because instead of it being just internal singular personality traits which clash, it's whole kind of collectives of personality traits that progressively developed as selves, that really developed their own perspectives, their own friendships, their own attachments, their own principles, things that they value, things that distress them. And so I find they're was originally a big clash between the ones that identified as male and the ones that identified as female. And when you've got a female body, that's not easy, because some of them, some want to throw out all the clothes belonging to the other half, and then, and the others saying, what happened to all my clothes, and why is this other part of me being so cruel? And, one part will collect all completely impractical little things, and the other part will say, what is this crap? This is completely impractical, and give it away. I guess also other clashes are with things like one part of me is very logical and serious and responsible and conscientious and practical, and that was very, very hard to marry up with the part that was much more about emotion, about sensitivity, about being, about pleasing people, about being kind to people, about being helpful, being thoughtful, being obliging, being adaptable. And so this other more mentalistic part was, that makes no sense, rise above that. Why don't you think, where's your common sense, and why don't you use your mind? But where your mind and emotions have split and branched off in early childhood and developed into their own little trees of fully developed selves, it's not easy, because then they start having big fights. The other parts, the emotional, the more emotional selves, they can't relate to the necessity for such a degree of practicality, and why does everything have to be only useful, and the burden of mind, and then there was, I guess, a really strong split between the selves that were very about impulse and will and improv, and those parts really are so anarchic and hedonistic and impulsive, and the mind self, which is basically like a control freak, and I've got these other ones that, at the extreme, the most extreme one is quite grungy, and then I've got that emotional lot one that's quite refined. We've got the more grungy one and the refined one. We've got the moralistic one and the anarchic one, and so no matter what I seem to choose, what occupation, what hobby, what friends, what places to go, someone's happy and someone's not. And so it's really hard, because I come out of all manner of situations where one part is feeling quite reasonable, and then the other part, as soon as it gets its chance, is like, "Rawr," don't make us ever do that again. And it's like, hey, I could have a life. So it's a bit of a challenge. And then there's the split, I guess, between the body self and the mind self. And the body self really lives for a very hands-on world that is about doing in order to know, whereas the mind world is like, let me find out about this so I can do. And the body self wants to have a very hands-on, direct, tactile, sensory relationship to the world, and the mind self is happy to completely indulge in lists and systems and categories, and at the same time they both have their own strengths, if only they didn't build their whole identity and lives in defiance of each other's existence. So I guess the trick is how to kind of undo a lot of those clashes, and that means that all have to begin to explore who each other are and find ways of understanding and relating to that, exploring that, having the bravery to explore that. So I hope that's been interesting about internal clashes and the spectrum, because it really is a spectrum. A lot of people who aren't dissociated experience internal clashes, and certainly those who are experience more of them. Thanks a lot.